Next, we're going to talk about food size assessments. And so this is how we assess the size of food pieces. IDDSI does these assessments with the fork and or adult thumbnail. The tines and slots in a fork are used for smaller pieces of food. The thumbnail or the whole fork are used to evaluate bite-sized pieces. These tests are used for minced and moist, soft and bite-sized, level 5 and 6, and also used for transitional foods. Adults chew food until it reaches the size of between 2 and 4 millimeters before they swallow a bolus. Level 5 minced and moist requires that food pieces be smaller than 4 millimeters for adults and 2 millimeters for children. IDDSI has found most fork tines are actually 4 millimeters apart, so between the fork tines. So the very simple assessment to be sure the food fits between the fork tines. So what you'll have to do in your facility is make sure that's actually how your fork measures out. Food is three-dimensional, as we know, and IDDSI actually allows food to be 4 by 4 by 15 for adults and 2 by 2 by 8 millimeters for children. This does allow for things like rice to be compliant with IDDSI without more processing. And we know that most foods will be more uniform when you process them because that's just the way that food processors work. IDDSI has 3 other times that you will need to be able to measure that samples are 15 millimeters by 15 millimeters. Bite size is a maximum food piece size of 15 by 15 for adults and 8 by 8 for children. The sample size used for 2 tests we'll talk about shortly use 15 by 15 millimeter sample, and that's the fork pressure test and the transitional foods. We'll talk more about that. The 2 tools that IDDSI recommends is a fork or an adult thumbnail. So if you look at this fork, it's about 15 millimeters wide. And if you look at this average thumbnail, which is actually John's thumbnail, it's 15 millimeters wide. So what you'll need to do, appropriate for your needs in your facility, you'll need to measure your forks, and you'll need to determine what 2, 4, 8, and 15 or 15 mils is. This slide we've included to show you the reasoning behind these particle size assessments. The goal is to always provide food that is small enough, John talked about this, that it will not fully block the airway if it accidentally ends up in the trachea. Adult airways are usually larger than about 15 millimeters, and children are usually larger than 8 millimeters.